Michael had always lived his life with quiet strength. He was not a man of wealth or privilege, but a man who worked hard to keep his little world together. Every morning he woke up in his small apartment on the edge of town, prepared breakfast for his daughter Emma, and got her ready for school. At 38, Michael had known struggles most men would run away from, but he never once thought of running. Life had tested him when his wife left years ago, leaving him with nothing but a 3-year-old daughter in his arms and unpaid bills scattered across the kitchen counter. Since then, Emma had been his only reason to fight, his only reason to smile, and his only reason to survive. Emma, now 7, was a bright little girl with big brown eyes that shone like the morning sun. She adored her father, trusted him with all her heart, and believed in his ability to fix everything, even when he could not. Her laughter filled the air around their small home and turned even the darkest days into something bearable. On that particular Saturday morning, Michael decided to take Emma to the city park. He had no money for expensive outings, no tickets for movies, and no fancy toys to offer. But he knew that Emma loved the park, where she could swing high, chase birds, and eat the sandwiches he packed for her. For him, the park was free, but for Emma it was magic. The park was alive with the voices of families, the barking of dogs, and the sound of children running across the green grass. Michael carried a worn backpack filled with sandwiches, apples, and a bottle of water. Emma skipped by his side, holding his rough hand with her small, soft fingers. "Daddy," she said, looking up at him with her curious eyes. "Can we stay a long time today?" Michael smiled, his tired face brightening with her joy. "As long as you want, pumpkin. Today is just for you." They found a quiet corner near the playground where Michael spread a thin old blanket under the shade of a tall oak tree. Emma ran toward the swings, her laughter ringing through the air as Michael sat back watching her. He felt tired, but it was the good kind of tired, the kind that came from knowing his daughter was happy. But then, as his eyes drifted across the park, he noticed something unusual. On a wooden bench not far from the playground, a woman sat alone. She wore a long coat even though the sun was warm, and her hands trembled as she held a small scarf close to her face. Her shoulders shook, and though she tried to hide it, Michael could see clearly. She was crying. Michael felt a small tug on his sleeve. Emma had returned from the swings, her big eyes fixed on the woman. She whispered softly, "Daddy, why is the lady crying?" Her words carried innocence but also concern. Michael turned his gaze back to the woman. He didn't know her. She looked well-dressed, her shoes polished, her hair neat, and yet she seemed broken in that moment. "I don't know, sweetheart," Michael answered gently. "But sometimes people carry heavy hearts just like we carry heavy bags." Emma tilted her head. "Should we help her?" Michael hesitated. He was not the kind of man to intrude on a stranger's sorrow. Life had taught him to keep to himself, to mind his own troubles. Yet when he looked at the woman again, something inside him stirred. He knew what it meant to feel lost, to feel like the world was too heavy to carry. He had been there many nights, sitting in the dark after Emma went to sleep, holding his head in his hands, wondering how he would pay the rent or feed his child. "Yes," he finally said, standing up and taking Emma's hand. "We should always try to help." Together they walked toward the bench. The woman didn't notice them at first. She was too deep in her sorrow, her eyes staring at the ground, her tears falling silently. Michael cleared his throat softly, not wanting to startle her. "Excuse me, miss," he said in a kind voice. "Are you all right?" The woman lifted her head slightly, and Michael was struck by the sadness in her eyes. She was beautiful, but not in a way that demanded attention. Her beauty was soft, quiet, almost fragile. Her cheeks were wet with tears, and for a moment she looked at Michael as if she couldn't understand why a stranger cared. I'm fine," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Thank you." Emma stepped forward, her small voice innocent and pure. "Don't cry, lady. My daddy says crying makes the heart hurt more." The woman blinked, her lips parting slightly as if she didn't know how to respond. Then, for the first time, a faint smile touched her face. She looked down at Emma, who stared at her with honest concern. "What's your name, little one?" the woman asked softly. "Emma," she said proudly, pointing to her father. "And this is my daddy." Michael nodded politely. "Michael, it's nice to meet you. I don't mean to intrude, but sometimes it helps to talk." The woman looked down at her hands, twisting the scarf she held. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then she said quietly, "My name is Jennifer." Michael didn't recognize her. He had no idea that the woman sitting before him was Jennifer Williams, one of the wealthiest businesswomen in America, known in magazines and television. To him, she was just a woman in pain. "Jennifer," Michael said gently, "sometimes life puts us in hard places. I know how that feels. If you need someone to listen, I'm here. No judgment." Jennifer stared at him, her tears slowing. There was something different about this man. Most people looked at her with admiration, greed, or curiosity. But this man's eyes held no agenda. His clothes were simple, his shoes worn, his hands rough from labor. Yet his voice carried warmth and honesty. Emma, meanwhile, climbed onto the bench beside Jennifer without hesitation. She reached out her small hand and placed it gently on Jennifer's arm. "My daddy always says tomorrow will be better. Maybe your tomorrow will be better too." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different. They were not just tears of sorrow, but of being touched by kindness she hadn't felt in a long time. Michael stood quietly, unsure of what else to say. He didn't want to press her, but he also didn't want to leave her alone in her sadness. "We're just over there," he said, pointing to the oak tree. "If you'd like, you can sit with us. We have some sandwiches. They're not fancy, but they're made with love." Jennifer blinked, stunned by the invitation. No one had spoken to her like this in years, without fear, without expectation, without calculation. She looked at Emma, who was still smiling at her, then at Michael, whose eyes carried both strength and gentleness. For a long moment she hesitated. But finally she nodded. I'd like that." Michael smiled softly. "Come on then. Fresh air, good company, and peanut butter sandwiches might just fix the world for a while." And so, the woman who had more money than she could ever spend stood up and walked with a broke single father and his little girl, not knowing that this small act of kindness would change all their lives forever. Michael led Jennifer and Emma to the shade of the oak tree, where the sun painted warm golden patches on the soft grass. He carefully spread the old blanket he carried from home and motioned for Jennifer to sit. Emma, still excited, plopped down beside her new friend, handing her a sandwich as if it were a treasure. "It's just peanut butter and jelly," Emma said proudly. "But my daddy says it tastes like happiness." Jennifer laughed softly, the sound light and almost musical. She had not laughed like that in months. Not since the pressures of her life had begun to feel unbearable. The world outside her wealth was harsh, judgmental, and lonely. Even surrounded by people who wanted her fortune or influence, she often felt invisible, unseen for the real person she was inside. Yet here she was on a simple blanket in a city park, eating a peanut butter sandwich offered by a little girl who didn't care about the money she might own or the name she carried. "Thank you, Emma," Jennifer said, her voice warm though tinged with vulnerability. She took a small bite and nodded appreciatively. "It's very good." Emma's eyes sparkled. "Daddy makes the best sandwiches in the whole world. He says food made with love tastes different." Michael smiled, feeling a small rush of pride. "Emma's right," he said. "A little love in anything makes it better." For a few moments, silence settled comfortably among the three of them. The distant sounds of children playing and birds chirping filled the background. Jennifer watched Emma's small hands moving with enthusiasm as she pointed out a ladybug crawling across the blanket. Michael looked at them both, feeling a warmth he had almost forgotten in his busy, tiring life. "You know," Jennifer began softly, "I didn't expect to feel this way today. I came to the park to just sit, to be alone. And now here I am, talking to both of you. It feels different." "Good different." Michael nodded, understanding more than he could put into words. "Sometimes life pushes us into lonely corners, but people find their way to us even when we least expect it." Jennifer's gaze lingered on Michael, and for a fleeting moment, she saw a man who had carried burdens far heavier than hers. He didn't have wealth, influence, or recognition, yet he carried himself with dignity, kindness, and love for his daughter. It was a quiet kind of strength, one that didn't seek attention but demanded respect. Emma, sensing a connection forming, leaned closer to Jennifer. "Do you want to see the swings after we eat?" she asked eagerly. Jennifer's eyes lit up. I'd love to," Michael chuckled. "Careful, Jennifer. Emma here is fearless on the swings. You might need a running start." Jennifer laughed again, a clear sound that seemed to chase away some of her sadness. She realized how simple things, sunlight, fresh air, laughter, and small acts of kindness could heal more than money or power ever could. As Emma chattered about her school, her favorite stories, and the games she loved, Michael quietly watched Jennifer. He noticed her hands trembling slightly when she laughed, the way her eyes sometimes darted to the ground as if afraid someone would judge her vulnerability. Michael understood that look all too well. Life had a way of teaching humility, endurance, and resilience, often through the hardest struggles. "Jennifer," Michael said gently, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," and she replied, curious. "Why were you crying on the bench?" Jennifer hesitated, unsure if she wanted to share her life with a stranger. But something about Michael's presence, the honesty in his voice, the simplicity in his manner, and the warmth he radiated, made her feel safe. She sighed and said softly, "Life can be very hard sometimes. I have things people dream of, money, a big house, my career. But I've also felt alone. People see the outside, but not the inside." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "I know that feeling too. People often look at what they can't have, but they don't see what we carry in our hearts. I don't have much, but I have Emma, and she makes every struggle worth it." Jennifer looked at him, really looked, and saw not just a single father, but a man who had fought battles invisible to the world, a man who loved deeply despite hardships. She felt a warmth she hadn't felt in years, a reminder that not every connection in life was transactional. Some were pure, unselfish, and life-changing. Emma, sensing the serious tone, grabbed Jennifer's hand. "Daddy says tears are okay. They tell our heart that we care. But smiles are better. They tell the heart that we can keep going." Jennifer smiled, brushing her fingers against Emma's. "You have a wise daddy," she said softly. Michael blushed slightly, feeling embarrassed but pleased. "I do my best," he said humbly. "We just try to live one day at a time." For the next hour, the three of them sat on that blanket, sharing sandwiches, stories, and small moments of laughter. Emma taught Jennifer how to skip rocks across the park pond, and Jennifer showed Emma a few simple magic tricks with coins she had in her purse. Michael watched with amusement and relief, knowing that this simple day, which cost almost nothing, was creating memories that would last a lifetime. As the sun moved lower in the sky, Michael realized it was almost time to head home. He stood and stretched, brushing grass from his pants. Jennifer stood as well, a little reluctantly, and dusted off her coat. "Thank you," she said quietly, looking at both of them, "for letting me just be human for a while." Michael smiled warmly. "Everyone deserves that. We all need someone to remind us that kindness still exists in the world." Emma ran ahead, holding Jennifer's hand. "Come on, lady. The swings are this way." Jennifer laughed again, following the little girl, and Michael felt a strange, comforting feeling in his chest. He didn't know much about Jennifer's life, her struggles, or her wealth. He only knew that she was kind, sad, and now smiling, a little. That was enough for him. Walking home later that evening, Michael thought about the unexpected encounter. Life had a way of bringing people together at the exact moment they needed it most. He glanced at Emma, who chattered happily about their new friend, and felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. He didn't know then that this day, this small act of kindness in a city park, was only the beginning, a chance meeting that could change their lives forever, weaving together the stories of a broke single father, his innocent daughter, and a woman who had everything, yet felt she had nothing. As the night fell, Jennifer lay awake in her apartment thinking about the man and his daughter she had met that afternoon. She felt a strange warmth in her heart and a longing for something she hadn't realized she missed: connection, simplicity, and unconditional kindness. For the first time in months, her heart felt lighter, and somewhere in his small apartment, Michael tucked Emma into bed, smiling at her soft breathing. He had no idea that this brief encounter with a crying woman in the park would bring unexpected joy, challenge his worldviews, and slowly intertwine their lives in ways none of them could imagine. For now, though, all that mattered was that they had met, that they had shared sandwiches, laughter, and comfort. And in that simple moment, a spark had been lit, a spark that could grow into something beautiful, if they allowed it to. The next morning, Michael woke early as usual, the faint sunlight streaming through the small blinds of his apartment. Emma was already awake, humming a little tune as she brushed her hair. Michael smiled at her, feeling that familiar warmth that always came with seeing her cheerful face. "Daddy," Emma said suddenly, her big brown eyes full of excitement. Can we go back to the park today? I want to see the lady again. Michael paused for a moment, thinking of Jennifer. He hadn't expected to see her again so soon. Life in the park had been a fleeting moment, a rare connection in his hectic, difficult life. But looking at Emma's hopeful face, he knew he couldn't say no. All right, Pumpkin, he said softly. We'll go to the park again today. They packed a small lunch, just like yesterday, and walked to the park. Emma skipped along the path, glancing around for any sign of their new friend. Michael followed, a quiet smile on his lips, wondering if Jennifer would even show up. When they reached the park, they spotted her immediately. Jennifer was sitting under the same oak tree, reading a small book. She looked up as they approached and smiled gently. For a moment, Michael noticed the tiredness in her eyes, but also a hint of something new. Hope, maybe, or relief that someone remembered her beyond her status or wealth. Hello? Jennifer said warmly. I was hoping I'd see you two again. Emma ran forward and hugged her quickly. We're back. I brought you another sandwich. Jennifer laughed softly. Thank you, Emma, that's very kind of you. She took the sandwich, her fingers brushing lightly against the little girl's, and felt a comforting warmth spread through her chest. Michael walked up beside them and greeted Jennifer with a nod. Good morning, he said simply. I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, Jennifer replied. I actually looked forward to seeing you again. They settled on the blanket just as they had the day before. The morning air was fresh, the sunlight warmer than yesterday, and the park seemed alive in a different way. For Michael, these small moments were precious. Money and status could not buy days like this, where he could simply sit, share, and feel human connection. As they ate their sandwiches, they talked. Michael told Jennifer small, ordinary stories about his life, his work at the local grocery store, the way Emma insisted on making pancakes on Saturday mornings, and the struggles of balancing bills and school supplies. He spoke without complaint, with honesty and humility, and Jennifer listened intently, fascinated by the simplicity and sincerity of his world. I admire you, Jennifer said quietly at one point, almost hesitantly. You do so much for your daughter, and you do it without complaints, without looking for pity. That's rare, Michael shrugged, embarrassed by the compliment. I'm just a dad trying to do my best. I don't have much, but I have Emma, and she makes everything worth it. Jennifer's eyes softened. She thought about her own life, full of wealth, recognition, and constant attention, but so often empty of warmth or honesty. Here was a man who had so little yet carried so much grace. It made her reflect on her choices, her loneliness, and the walls she had built around her heart. Emma, sensing the shift in the adult conversation, decided to lighten the mood. Daddy, let's show Jennifer the ducks, she exclaimed, pointing toward the small pond at the edge of the park. Michael smiled and stood, helping Jennifer up from the blanket. Are you ready for a little adventure? He asked. Jennifer nodded, curious and intrigued by the childlike enthusiasm surrounding her. They walked toward the pond, Emma running ahead, and Michael noticed how Jennifer's steps were careful, almost hesitant. She wasn't used to ordinary, unscripted moments like this. But as they approached the pond, he saw her relax slightly, her shoulders loosening as she followed Emma's joyful energy. The ducks waddled toward them, quacking for food. Emma laughed and tossed small pieces of bread she had saved from their sandwiches. Jennifer joined in, breaking a small piece of bread and watching as a duck quickly snatched it up. She laughed again, a pure sound that echoed lightly across the water. You know, Michael said, smiling at her. Sometimes the simplest things are the happiest. Ducks, breadcrumbs, laughter, they remind us what life can be without all the noise and expectations. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. I think I've forgotten that feeling, she admitted softly. I spend so much time thinking about success, money, appearances. I forget to just live. Michael's expression softened. Living doesn't have to be complicated. It's the people, the love, and the small moments that make it meaningful. Jennifer looked at him, really looked, and felt a deep sense of admiration. Here was a man who faced life's hardships every day, who worried about bills, food, and his child's future, and yet he carried kindness in his heart. It was a strength that couldn't be bought or inherited. It was earned through love and resilience. Emma, noticing the serious tone, tugged Jennifer's sleeve. Come on, let's race to the swings. Jennifer laughed again, nodding. All right, but don't think I'll go easy on you. They ran together to the swings. Emma swung higher and higher, squealing with delight, while Jennifer followed more cautiously, laughing as she went. Michael watched them both, feeling something he had not felt in a long time, hope. Not just for today, but for the possibility that life could hold surprises, joy, and connections that mattered. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, they returned to the blanket, tired but happy. Jennifer looked at Michael, her expression sincere. I don't know how to thank you for yesterday and today. You didn't know who I was, and yet you treated me like a person, not like a problem or a headline. Michael shook his head gently. Jennifer, everyone deserves kindness. Money or status doesn't change that. Life is hard for everyone in different ways. You just happened to need someone today, and I was lucky to be there. Jennifer smiled, a faint blush on her cheeks. I think I'm learning something from both of you. About life, about joy, about love. Michael's heart warmed at her words. Sometimes the best lessons come from the smallest moments. For the rest of the afternoon, they stayed together, sharing stories, laughing, and simply being. Jennifer found herself opening up in ways she hadn't imagined. She told Emma about her favorite childhood memories, her love for reading, and even small fears she carried. Emma listened intently, nodding and asking questions, treating her as a friend rather than a stranger. Michael stayed close, sometimes joining the conversation, sometimes just observing, grateful for the unexpected connection forming between them. As the day ended, Michael packed up their things. Jennifer hesitated, not wanting the moment to end. Thank you, Michael. Today it was special, more than I can explain. Michael nodded. It was special for us too, maybe. We can meet here again tomorrow. Jennifer smiled softly. I'd like that. Emma hugged Jennifer tightly. See you tomorrow, lady. Michael held Emma's hand as they walked home, a quiet sense of hope lingering in the air. He didn't know what the future held or who Jennifer really was. All he knew was that 2 days ago, a woman had cried alone on a park bench, and now she had laughed, shared, and connected with his small family in a way that felt real and meaningful. Jennifer, walking home separately, thought about the warmth she had felt with Michael and Emma. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, valued, and connected. She realized that wealth and status could never replace the simple, human moments she was experiencing. And deep down, she knew that meeting Michael and Emma might change her life in ways she could not yet understand. As night fell over the city, the three of them drifted to sleep with hearts lighter than the day before, unaware that the bond they were forming would soon face challenges, tests, and revelations, but also moments of joy, hope, and love that neither of them could have imagined. A week had passed since Michael, Emma, and Jennifer had met in the park, and their bond had quietly deepened. Emma talked about Jennifer constantly, telling her friends at school about the lady who loved peanut butter sandwiches and ducks. Michael smiled at her, excitement, but also felt a subtle tension creeping into his life. Despite working long hours at the grocery store, Michael was struggling more than ever. Bills had piled up faster than he could handle, and a notice had arrived at the apartment that morning, a reminder that the rent was overdue. Michael's stomach knotted as he read it, his heart heavy. But he refused to show worry in front of Emma. He had always shielded her from the harshest parts of their life, and he intended to keep it that way. Emma, however, noticed the worry in her father's eyes. Sitting at the small kitchen table, she asked softly, "Daddy, is everything okay?" Michael forced a small smile. "Yes, Pumpkin. Just a little work stuff. Nothing to worry about." But he knew that the day would bring challenges he could not ignore. As he walked to the grocery store for his shift, he carried Emma's lunch and a sense of responsibility heavier than ever. Every step reminded him that being a single father meant being both mother and father, protector and provider. He loved his daughter more than life itself, but sometimes the weight of the world felt unbearable. Meanwhile, Jennifer thought about the small family often. She had returned to her usual life of meetings, decisions, and public appearances, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the father and daughter she had met in the park. She wondered how they were doing, whether they were happy, and if they knew how much their kindness had touched her heart. One evening, Jennifer visited the park again, hoping to see them. She had brought a small surprise, some books she thought Emma might enjoy. As she approached the oak tree, she saw Michael sitting on the bench, his head lowered, his expression troubled. Emma was nearby, playing quietly. unaware of her father's worries. Jennifer's heart tightened. Something was wrong. She walked closer. "Michael, Emma?" Michael looked up, startled but grateful to see her. "Jennifer." "Hi?" His voice was calm, but she could sense the tension beneath it. Emma ran forward. "Lady, you came back," she exclaimed, handing Jennifer a small flower she had picked from the grass. Jennifer smiled, accepting the flower. "It's beautiful, Emma, thank you." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Jennifer, she held up a hand gently. "You don't have to explain anything. I can see it on your face. Life is hard right now, isn't it?" Michael's pride made him hesitate. He had never been the type to accept help easily. Yet there was something about Jennifer that made him trust her instincts. After a long pause, he nodded slowly. "We're managing, barely. Work, bills. It all adds up. I'm trying to keep it together for Emma, but sometimes it feels like too much." Jennifer sat down beside him, choosing her words carefully. "I know you're proud and independent. That's one of the things I admire about you. But it's okay to accept help when it's offered. Sometimes people want to help because they care, not because they feel obligated." Michael looked at her, torn between gratitude and pride. He knew she had money, enough to solve almost any problem, but he didn't want to feel like he owed her. "I appreciate it, Jennifer," he said softly, "but I have to do this myself. Emma depends on me. I can't let her see me giving up." Jennifer nodded, understanding his determination. But she also wanted to help, in a way that would not hurt his pride. Quietly, she reached into her bag and handed him a small envelope. "Just open it when you're alone," she said softly, standing up to leave. Michael stared at the envelope, puzzled. He wanted to say something, but Jennifer was already walking away, disappearing down the path. The envelope weighed in his hand, and curiosity battled with his pride. That night, after tucking Emma into bed, he sat at the kitchen table and opened it. Inside, he found a modest check and a note. For rent and groceries. No strings attached. "Just to make your life a little easier while you take care of your little girl." "Jay?" Michael's fingers trembled as he read the note. Pride, gratitude, and guilt mingled inside him. He had never accepted money from anyone outside family. He wanted to call Jennifer to thank her, but he couldn't. Her gesture was private, and he respected that. Instead, he placed the envelope in his drawer, deciding to use it quietly, without letting Emma see. The next morning, life went on as usual. Michael went to work, Emma went to school, and the envelope stayed tucked safely away. But Jennifer's kindness lingered in his heart, giving him a small, quiet hope that he could breathe a little easier. A few days later, Jennifer returned to the park, hoping to see them. She had brought more books for Emma and some small treats for Michael, a simple gesture of friendship. When she saw them, her heart lifted. Emma ran to her immediately while Michael gave a small, wary smile. "Hello, Jennifer," he said, keeping his tone neutral, though warmth peeked through. "Hi, Michael." "Hi, Emma," Jennifer replied. She handed Emma a small stack of colorful books. "For you, Emma, some stories I think you'll like." Emma clutched the books to her chest, eyes wide with excitement. "Thank you, lady. You're the best." Michael accepted the small bag she offered him. Inside were fresh fruits and a few homemade snacks. This is really thoughtful," he said softly. Jennifer smiled. "I just want to help in small ways. Nothing big, just to make life a little brighter." As they shared the snacks under the oak tree, Michael realized that kindness came in many forms, not just through words, but through actions, no matter how small. He thought about how Jennifer had quietly helped him without expecting anything in return, and it struck him how rare true generosity was. Emma, oblivious to the subtle emotional tension between the adults, played with her books, reading aloud from the colorful pages. Jennifer watched her with a smile, feeling a joy she hadn't experienced in years. Michael sat nearby, observing both of them, realizing that despite his struggles, life was giving him moments of pure happiness, moments that money could never buy. As the afternoon faded, Jennifer prepared to leave. "I should go now," she said softly. "But I'll see you again soon, right?" Emma hugged her tightly. "Yes. Please come back, lady." Michael nodded silently, watching her leave, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and unease. He didn't know the full extent of Jennifer's wealth, and he didn't want it to matter. What mattered was the kindness, the laughter, and the hope she had brought into their lives. That evening, Michael sat in his small apartment, reflecting on the week's events. He had faced his struggles, but he had also felt the warmth of connection, the spark of trust and friendship. For the first time in months, he felt that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Jennifer, back in her luxurious apartment, thought about Michael and Emma. She had always been surrounded by people who admired her for what she had, not for who she was. But these two, this small family, had reminded her of the importance of simple human connection, of love, and of trust. She knew she wanted to see them again, to be part of their lives even if just in small ways. And so, their worlds began to intertwine more deeply. Michael, the broke single father, struggled with life's harsh realities, while Jennifer, the woman who had everything, quietly offered support. Neither knew how far this connection would go, but the seeds of friendship, trust, and perhaps something more had been planted. Life was about to challenge them further, but for now, under the gentle glow of the setting sun, there was hope, warmth, and the quiet assurance that kindness could change everything. The park was quiet that afternoon, with golden sunlight spilling through the trees and casting warm shadows on the familiar oak. Emma ran ahead, her laughter echoing as she chased a stray butterfly while Michael followed, carrying the small bag of sandwiches he had prepared. He felt lighter than usual, his mind comforted by the recent days spent with Jennifer and Emma. Yet a quiet unease lingered. He had a sense that things might change soon. Jennifer was already waiting near the bench, her posture calm, but there was a hint of seriousness in her eyes. As Michael and Emma approached, she rose and smiled. "Hello, you two," she said, her voice gentle but deliberate. Emma ran straight into her arms, hugging her tightly. "Lady, you're back," she exclaimed. Jennifer laughed softly. "Of course, Emma, I wouldn't miss it." Michael noticed something in her gaze that he hadn't seen before, a mix of anticipation and apprehension. There was a heaviness to her smile, and he instinctively knew that today would be different. They sat on the blanket together, sharing sandwiches and quiet conversation as usual. But after a while, Jennifer's tone shifted. She set her sandwich down and looked directly at Michael. "Michael, there's something I need to tell you. Something important." Michael frowned slightly, unsure what she meant. "Okay," he said cautiously. "What is it?" Jennifer took a deep breath. "I haven't told you the truth about myself," she began. I'm not just an ordinary woman. My full name is Jennifer Williams. I run a large company, and yes, I am wealthy. Very wealthy." Michael froze, his hand tightening around his sandwich. For a moment, he couldn't find words. He looked at Jennifer, searching her face for signs of jest or hidden motives. But her eyes were sincere, calm, and earnest. Emma tilted her head, sensing the tension but not fully understanding. "You're rich?" she asked simply, her voice curious rather than judgmental. Jennifer nodded. "Yes, Emma, I am. But none of that matters to me when I'm with you both. When I met you, I didn't tell you who I was because I wanted to be seen for who I am, not for money or status." Michael swallowed hard. A whirlwind of emotions ran through him. Shock, confusion, and a subtle sting of betrayal. He had spent the past days connecting with her as a person, sharing laughter and trust, and now her true identity felt like a wall had been placed between them. "Why didn't you tell me before?" he asked quietly, his voice steady but strained. "Was it all a game?" Jennifer shook her head, her hands clasped together. "No, Michael. Never a game. Everything I did, every moment we shared, it was real. I wanted to know you, to see the real person behind the struggles without anyone's expectations or assumptions. And I wanted Emma to see me as a friend, not as someone with wealth and power. I was afraid that the moment you knew, it would change things between us." Michael took a deep breath, trying to calm the mix of emotions swirling inside him. He remembered the days spent together, the laughter, the quiet talks, the small kindnesses exchanged. Was it possible that her care for them had been genuine, even if her life was completely different from his? Emma, sensing Michael's tension, looked up at him with big, innocent eyes. "Daddy, it doesn't matter how much money she has. She's our friend. That's what matters." Her words softened Michael's heart. Emma had a way of seeing the world without the complications adults added. She understood the value of kindness and connection better than anyone he knew. Jennifer continued, her voice calm but earnest. "I've tried to help in small ways quietly because I respect your pride. I didn't want to interfere or make you feel like you owed me. I just wanted to make life a little easier for you and Emma, because I care." Michael looked at her, feeling a mixture of gratitude and lingering doubt. Pride and fear made it difficult for him to fully accept her intentions. I don't know what to say, he admitted. It's not easy to trust someone after everything we've faced. Jennifer reached out, her hand brushing lightly against his. I understand, and I don't expect immediate trust. I just hope you'll see that my care for you both is real. Not because of my wealth, not because of my status, but because I value the connection we share. Michael remained silent for a moment, reflecting. He thought about the small acts of kindness, the sandwiches, the books, the quiet support she had offered without ever seeking recognition. Slowly he realized that her actions had always been genuine, regardless of her background. All right, he said finally, his voice softening. I believe you. It's just a lot to take in. We've connected as people, and now there's this wealth thing. It's a shock, Jennifer nodded, understanding completely. I know it is, and I'll give you time to process it. I just don't want my past, my wealth, or my life to create a barrier between us. I want to be here, for Emma, for you, for the connection we've built. Emma, sensing the resolution, ran up and hugged both of them together. See, everything's fine. Friends stay friends. Michael smiled, feeling the tension ease slightly. He realized that while wealth could create walls, it couldn't erase the genuine bond they had formed. The days spent together had been real, full of laughter, care, and understanding. That couldn't be undone by Jennifer's identity. Jennifer smiled at Michael, a mixture of relief and hope in her eyes. Thank you for understanding. I know it's not easy, but I hope in time you'll see that this connection is more important than anything else. Michael nodded. Yes, you've been honest and kind. That's what matters. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, sharing small moments of laughter, storytelling, and quiet companionship. Jennifer joined Emma in reading stories. Michael shared his thoughts about work and life, and for a while the world felt simple again. The tension that had crept in earlier melted into warmth, trust, and a quiet understanding that their bond was stronger than the complications of wealth or status. As the sun began to set, Michael realized that trust was not built overnight, but through consistent actions, honesty, and care. Jennifer had proven herself through her quiet, selfless gestures. And though challenges would surely come, he felt a glimmer of hope that they could face them together. Jennifer watched Michael and Emma walk toward their apartment, her heart full. She had revealed the truth, and though it had been nerve-wracking, it had also brought them closer. She understood that real connections weren't based on money, appearances, or power. They were based on sincerity, trust, and love. Michael, holding Emma's hand tightly, thought about the day's revelation. While the truth had initially shocked him, it also reminded him of the importance of judging people by their actions, not by assumptions or appearances. He realized that life could bring unexpected allies, genuine friendships, and even hope in the most surprising forms. And so, as night fell, the trio carried with them a renewed sense of trust, understanding, and possibility. Life would continue to challenge them, but for the first time in a long while, Michael felt that perhaps with Jennifer and Emma by his side, he could face anything that came their way. The connection they had formed, tested by truth, strengthened by honesty, and nurtured by small acts of love, was now ready to face the world. Together, the following week felt different for Michael. The weight of his struggles was still there, but it no longer pressed down as heavily. Something had shifted. A quiet sense of hope and possibility had entered his life. Emma noticed it immediately. She ran to him in the morning, her small arms wrapped around his legs, laughing with the same bright joy he had come to cherish. "Daddy," she exclaimed, "let's go see Jennifer today. I have a story to tell her." Michael smiled, ruffling her hair. "All right, pumpkin. Let's see what stories your imagination has cooked up today." They packed a small bag of sandwiches, just like before, and walked to the park. The sun shone warmly, and the park was alive with the sound of children playing, dogs barking, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. When they arrived, Jennifer was already waiting near the oak tree. Her smile was brighter than before, and her presence radiated calm and kindness. "Hello, Michael." "Hello, Emma," she greeted warmly. Emma ran to her immediately, bouncing with excitement. "Lady, I have a story about ducks and magic." Jennifer laughed, crouching down to Emma's level. "I can't wait to hear it." Michael stood nearby, watching them with a smile. The scene felt almost surreal. He, a single father with little to his name, sharing moments of pure joy with a woman who had once seemed unreachable. But now they were just people connected by kindness, laughter, and trust. As Emma animatedly described her story, Jennifer listened intently, laughing at the funny parts and marveling at the clever twists Emma had imagined. Michael sat quietly, feeling a warmth in his chest that he hadn't felt in a long time. The simple moments, sharing sandwiches, telling stories, and enjoying the sunlight, had become treasures in a life often weighed down by responsibility and struggle. After Emma finished her story, she looked at both adults seriously. "You two should play too." Jennifer and Michael exchanged a glance, smiling. "Maybe later," Michael said softly. "But right now, Emma, let's hear more of your adventures." They spent hours at the park, the laughter and companionship slowly weaving a bond that felt stronger with each passing day. Jennifer found herself opening up more, sharing small stories from her childhood, her favorite memories, and even some of her fears. Michael listened, offering quiet support and understanding. They both realized that despite their different lives, they shared something important: respect, honesty, and a willingness to care for each other and for Emma. As the afternoon sun began to set, Michael noticed the long shadows stretching across the park. "We should start heading home soon, Pumpkin," he said gently. Emma pouted briefly, then nodded. "Okay, Daddy, but can we come back tomorrow?" Jennifer smiled. "Of course. I'd like that very much." On the way back to their apartment, Michael carried Emma on his shoulders while Jennifer walked beside them, chatting softly. The city streets seemed brighter, friendlier, somehow lighter. Michael realized that their lives, once weighed down by struggles and uncertainty, now held possibilities they hadn't dared to imagine before. That evening, after tucking Emma into bed, Michael sat in his small kitchen reflecting on the past week. He thought about the first day he and Emma had found Jennifer crying on the bench, how their worlds had collided unexpectedly, and how a simple act of kindness had blossomed into something meaningful. The envelope of help Jennifer had left him, the quiet support she offered, had been a gesture of care without expectation. And now, after her truth had been revealed, he realized that trust and connection could transcend wealth, status, and fear. Jennifer, in her own home, was also reflecting. She had been worried about revealing her identity, fearing it might change the bond they had formed. But Michael had met the truth with understanding, and Emma had seen beyond it entirely. Jennifer realized that the moments they had shared, the laughter, the stories, the small adventures, were genuine, not influenced by her wealth, and that gave her hope. The next day, they returned to the park once more. This time, Michael brought a small kite he had saved up to buy for Emma weeks ago. They found a quiet hill near the park, the grass soft under their feet and the wind just right. Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement as Michael handed her the kite. "Ready, Pumpkin?" he asked. Emma nodded eagerly. Jennifer stood nearby, her hands clapping gently. "Go on, Emma. Let's see it fly." With Michael's guidance, Emma ran across the hill, the kite catching the wind and soaring into the sky. She squealed with joy as it danced above them, and Jennifer watched, a smile lighting her face. She felt a quiet happiness she hadn't experienced in years, pure, simple, and unpretentious. Michael, watching both of them, felt a sense of completion. The struggles of the past, the late nights worrying about bills, the constant pressure of being a single parent, they were all part of his life. But in moments like this, they felt lighter, manageable, even meaningful. He realized that support, trust, and love could lift the heaviest burdens. Jennifer approached Michael quietly, standing beside him as they both watched Emma chase the kite. "You're a wonderful father, Michael," she said softly. "The love you give Emma, it's rare and beautiful." Michael smiled, a little embarrassed by the compliment. "I do my best. She deserves everything I can give her." Jennifer nodded, understanding. "And you're not alone anymore. I want to be here, not to replace anything, but to support, to share, to care. If you'll let me." Michael took a deep breath. He realized that life had given him an unexpected gift. A woman who cared, a daughter who loved deeply, and the promise of connection and trust that money could never buy. "Yes," he said quietly. I think we can figure this out together." Jennifer smiled, relief and hope shining in her eyes. Emma ran back toward them, her hair tousled by the wind, her cheeks flushed with happiness. "Look, Daddy. Look how high it's flying." Michael and Jennifer laughed together. their laughter mingling with Emma's. In that moment, nothing else mattered. They were three people bound by trust, love, and kindness, facing the world together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Michael realized that life had a way of surprising him. Struggles would come, challenges would arise, but with Emma and Jennifer by his side, he knew they could face anything. The tears of the past had made way for laughter. The hardships had been softened by kindness, and the uncertain future now held hope. That night, as Emma slept peacefully in her bed, Michael sat quietly, thinking of Jennifer's words, her presence, and the life they were beginning to share. He realized that family wasn't just about blood, it was about care, trust, and love. Jennifer and Emma had both brought light into his world, and he would do everything to protect and nurture that light. Jennifer, back in her home, thought about the day. She felt a sense of peace knowing that her honesty had been met with trust and understanding. She realized that love and friendship could transcend barriers of wealth, fear, or pride. And for the first time in years, she felt that maybe she had found a place where she truly belonged. Life was still unpredictable, and the challenges of the world were far from gone. But together, Michael, Emma, and Jennifer had discovered something invaluable, a bond built on honesty, kindness, and the courage to open their hearts. And that bond would guide them through whatever came next. As they drifted off to sleep that night, each of them held a quiet certainty in their hearts. That family, in its truest sense, could be chosen, nurtured, and cherished. And in their small world, filled with laughter, sandwiches, and gentle moments of love, they had found it.